Hello, everyone. As the year comes to a close, we wanted to take a few minutes to reflect on the climate actions that we're hoping to see in the new year. This is a crucial moment for Vermont, and this year's election delivered a mandate to advance climate action. We need to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions as the Earth continues to heat up at an alarming rate. Every year that we don't act, we continue to lock Vermonters into polluting, price-volatile fossil fuels that harm our health and environment. We need to modernize our energy system to maximize additional local renewable generation and provide for an affordable and equitable clean energy transition, especially in our two most polluting sectors, thermal heating and transportation. So today we're going to hear from a couple members of the Vermont environmental movement. So I'm Lauren Hierl, Executive Director of Vermont Conservation Voters, and I'll speak a little bit more about the mandate for action from voters and why it matters. We're going to hear from then Edgerly Walsh, the Climate and Energy Program Director of VPIRG, who will discuss some of the specific climate policies that we are going to be acting on. I'll talk with you about a couple of climate resilience policies, and then we'll hear from Lily Terry, the appointed youth member of the Vermont Climate Council, on why we need substantial climate progress and what inaction means for young people. And we'll wrap up with Johanna Miller of the Vermont Natural Resources Council. So on this shortest day of the year, we are turning toward the light. This recent election season, groups including Vermont Conservation Voters and VPIRG Votes worked incredibly hard to help elect climate champions. And meanwhile, the fossil fuel industry and their allies were trying to push out a message that we can't afford to act on climate, but Vermonters were not buying it. Voters sent a clear message and delivered a mandate for climate action by electing the most pro-environment legislature ever. So on this winter solstice, we know that from here on out, the days are getting longer and brighter. And as we head into the 2023 legislative session, we're calling on all of you to collectively channel our energy and optimism and ensure that our state lawmakers take bold action on the climate crisis. We have a state climate action plan that gives us a blueprint for policies and investments that we need to make to power our lives and heat our homes and get around in cleaner and more affordable ways. And we also know we need to ensure climate policies are equitable and just. So now we're going to hear from a couple of my fabulous colleagues on what these key climate policies are and why swift and equitable action is so essential.
My name is Edgerly Walsh. I'm the Climate and Energy Program Director at VPIRG. And I wanted to just outline some of our top priorities as a coalition on climate action this coming legislative session. The three big focuses we have are the Affordable Heat Act, a policy you may have heard called the Clean Heat Standard, updating Vermont's renewable electricity standard, and continuing to build on the investments that we've made in clean transportation. The Affordable Heat Act is a policy that would require for the first time fossil fuel companies in the heating space in Vermont that bring fossil fuels into Vermont to help clean up that sector, to help Vermonters move to cleaner options to heat their homes and businesses. That's a policy that has always been about actually requiring Vermont to hit our targets, our requirements on greenhouse gas pollution in the heating sector, and to do so in a way that really drives at equity and affordability. And those are the two areas that we've continued to focus on and will continue to push the legislature to make the policy even better on. In terms of climate pollution, the changes that we're going to be pushing for this year to make the bill even better are ones that are really focused on ratcheting down the use of the kinds of combustion technologies that frankly have real climate and health impacts no matter what you're burning, no matter how ostensibly clean it is, and to really push towards and lean into electrification and weatherization as the cleanest, best options that we have for heating in Vermont. We also are really pushing to make the way that the bill looks at life cycle emissions more transparent and clearer, and to make sure things like methane emissions in the creation of renewable natural gas or the transportation of that fuel are absolutely captured. They should have been under last year's bill. They probably would have been, but our push is to make sure that those things are 100% incorporated. We also are going to be pushing to make sure that options like solar hot water, geothermal are unambiguously incorporated into this policy. And on the equity front, we'll be pushing to make sure that most of the clean heat measures delivered to low and moderate income Vermonters, and there's already a requirement in this legislation that the majority of benefits in the residential sector go to low and moderate income Vermonters, that most of those benefits are delivered in terms of things like weatherization and cold climate heat pumps that are going to bring Vermonters' energy bills down and that are going to make their energy bills more predictable over time. On the renewable electricity standard, we will be pushing for more new renewable electricity. Right now, Vermont's law only requires 10% of the electricity provided to Vermonters by 2032 to come from new sources. That is not nearly enough when we're talking about electricity. The question that we need to be asking ourselves is, are our policies reducing climate pollution by getting more new renewables built? If we're not getting more renewables built, we're not getting the job done. So we're going to be pushing for big new requirements for new renewables here in Vermont and around New England. And in doing that, we will really be prioritizing the accessibility of those renewable energy sources for low and moderate income Vermonters, especially renters, and making sure that this policy is also driving at protecting Vermonters from the high price of fossil fuels and keeping electric rates low over time. Finally, in transportation, we made a lot of big investments. And the legislature has invested in electric vehicles, electric vehicle charging infrastructure. There have been some increases in funding for transit, for microtransit, for biking and walking infrastructure. Those are things that we're really going to be focusing on this year as things that have seen modest increases but are still being underinvested in. And of course, we're going to continue to follow the investments in electric vehicles and electrification as a truly critical strategy as we're cleaning up and making more affordable our transportation sector. There will be a lot of other things we're working on, but those are the three big priorities we have this coming session.
So the Climate Action Plan also recognizes that the changing climate is already impacting our communities, as we know. And so we also need policies and investments that are going to promote smart growth housing while safeguarding our natural and working lands. So lawmakers really need to adopt policies that support and create more housing in thriving, compact, walkable communities to strengthen Vermont's climate resilience. And our forests, waters, and wetlands are critical resources that play important roles in ensuring climate resilience by improving water quality, providing essential wildlife habitat, storing and sequestering carbon, and improving flood resilience. So priority policies that we're going to be working on in 2023 to build our climate resilience will include better protections for our rivers, streams, and wetlands, as well as adopting a policy that got vetoed and stalled out last year, but we want to bring it back to conserve 30% of our lands by 2030 as a target and develop a plan to get there. And this is really in line with a federal initiative called America the Beautiful, and there was even a global commitment made just earlier this week at the UN Biodiversity Conference in Montreal. So a lot of work on climate resilience in addition to working to cut our climate pollution.
Hi, I'm Lily Terry. I am the Vermont Youth Representative on the Climate Council. I first became aware of the issues surrounding climate change when I was in elementary school, and since then I have been able to witness firsthand the impacts on our local ecosystem. 10 years ago, the 50-degree weather and inch of rain that we're supposed to get on Friday would not have been heard of. Since I started learning about this, no major policies have been passed, and the state's carbon emission levels are still above ideal. This needs to change. We need to pass policy now in the 2023 legislative session. We need to place restrictions on emissions from all sectors. We especially need to focus on the transportation sector. And to do this, we need to create an infrastructure that allows for equitable access to sustainable alternatives. In order to achieve the goals set forward by the Vermont Climate Action Plan, we need to provide the resources to create opportunities for everyone in the state to adopt these necessary changes in their lives. The more times The more time we spend talking about solutions, the more the planet warms and the more irreversible damage is done. We don't have any time left to keep discussing things. This is the planet that my generation is going to inherit, and we need to do something now to protect it.
Thank you, Lily, for your leadership. Thank you to so many young Vermonters who have stood up and spoken up and called for just climate action, including helping us establish the Global Warming Solutions Act, which is a really critical framework for taking the action we need to reduce our climate pollution and helping our communities adapt and thrive in a warming world, and making sure that we center the most vulnerable, lower income, and energy overburdened Vermonters in that transition. I wanted to just end by saying that we very much look forward to working with you in 2023 to deliver on some of the key policies and priorities that you just heard from some of my fabulous colleagues and partners. It's going to be really hard work, so we are hoping that you rest up, have some great time with family and friends this holiday season, and join us in 2023 to actually get things done and delivered. So if you're like me, I'll be at home watching The Sound of Music with my family, thinking of buttoned up houses and cold climate heat bumps. I really thank you for all you do. Please stay in touch. Enjoy the holiday. Stay well, healthy, rest up, turn towards the light on this beautiful winter solstice day, and join us again in 2023.